I see my name in shining lights. Yeah, a different city every night. Oh, I swear the world better prepare for when I'm a billionaire.
It's time to get down to business on the weekend's #1 business program. Known as the King of Networking, your host, Shalom Klein, has worked with thousands of entrepreneurs and created countless jobs. So, to success, let's get down to business.
And indeed, we are all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship in business. We talk a lot about business here. You're on with Get Down to Business, and I'm your host, Shalom Klein. Remember, you can always download podcasts from Get Down to Business on my website, shalomklein.com. And while you're there, don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Shalom Klein. It's going to be a jam-packed week of content and information you'll not want to miss. Let's jump right in. I am very excited to be joined by Sunil Godse, who is an expert in the world of branding. He has a fantastic podcast, books, all sorts of information. So I have so many questions, but Sunil Godse, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Shalom. I'm really happy to drop some knowledge bombs on this powerful subconscious phenomenon we have called intuition that is so responsible for creating a trusted brand.
Absolutely. Well, I love to get to know the person behind the microphones. So how did you become so passionate and get started on what I know I've been reading about your first book, and I know I've got to catch up because you've got a lot of content out there, as you say, knowledge bombs. But how did you develop this passion?
So after I wrote my first book, which was all about, it's called Fail Fast, Succeed Faster. And the premise of that book is that if you read stories of failure from others, then you shouldn't be repeating them. And so you should be able to succeed faster. And when I used to go talk on stages around the world on my book tour, a lot of the questions I used to get was, Sunil, give me the one thing that's going to help me be successful. And this is a 400-page book. Like, I didn't come here with a PDF sheet or a cue card. But when I went back to the audio recordings, 90% of the people who had failed had mentioned that they ignored their gut, ignored their intuition. They knew what the right decision was. They didn't take it. Some form of something like this, which pointed to intuition. It got me super interested and say, wow, I just missed this thing. And so when I looked at what intuition was, that's when my second book, Gut, was born. And I really took a dive into the science of intuition and its way in its ability to make decisions in your personal life. And then it was such a huge part in my role as a consultant and now coach, in how it helps you make the right decisions to build trust with others. And if you look at the research, that trust, when you use intuition to develop trust, it happens in as little as 33 milliseconds. And it takes up to 14 seconds for someone to say, yeah, you know what? I'm going to work for that person. I'm going to exchange some time, energy, or even money with that brand. And that's how quick it is. And so when you attract employees that want to work for you by making the decisions to make them feel valued, or if you have branding around the messaging that has potential customers and customers feeling valued to say, yeah, this product or service matches my needs and it's going to enhance my life, then you strip them away from your competitors because they're always going to trust you rather than another brand. And that's how you eliminate the competition in under 14 seconds, which is exactly what my tagline is.
Absolutely. I'm chatting with Sunil Godse, and Sunil, you promised knowledge bombs, but man, my mind is blown with those statistics that you just mentioned. And I've got a lot of questions to ask because you touched on the hiring piece, which is a hot topic right now, as well as, of course, in terms of branding as it relates to, of course, every business, certainly our small business listeners on this program want to bring in more business. So let's break apart those two pieces. When we're talking about hiring right now, everybody's saying it's the great resignation. Everybody's talking about how it's an employee's market right now and looking for those opportunities. So what is that one bit of advice that you'd want to share with the business owners that might be tuning in is how can they develop the messaging that will attract somebody to say, this is where I'd want to call home?
Yeah. So one of the things that I have my clients do, especially when during this great resignation, is to really kind of strip yourself away from the old business models and short-term thinking. And where you really have to provide leadership, which is a verb, is by having others feel valued and really caring about them, and also you looking inside to say, hey, listen, I am being authentic, and that's a big buzzword, but what my actions are, I speak my actions match the words that I say. You don't necessarily have to be vulnerable, but you have to be a bit empathetic. You have to have a relationship with those people. Don't treat the people that you're hiring as a number. And more employees now, or potential employees, are looking to themselves to say, hey, listen, I want to go where I'm feeling valued, because intuition is a two-way street. So as much as you as a leader is using intuition to lead others and make them feel valued, the employees are also looking to you to see, do you really value me, or are you just blowing hot air? And so we look to things like core values. We look to things like leadership, actually being leaders. And when you display those types of behaviors, then this triggers the intuition of those employees to say, wow, this is a good place to work. This leadership team they're authentic, they're consistent, they care about my growth in short term and long term. And you can all do this even with your hiring team. And that's when you solidify someone wanting to work for you. And the whole Great Resignation is because more and more people, especially now with the pandemic, we're forced to now look at, okay, what do I really want in a person that I want to work for? And from a leadership perspective, who do I really want on my team that's going to get me to the next level in terms of business growth? And when you match those two things up, magic happens. And so the Great Resignation is just people saying, are you the company that's going to have a value me or not? And when they find that, they're going to stick. And for those companies who don't display that, they're going to be cycling through a whole bunch of turnover, because they're just not doing things the right way. They're not making the right decisions that actually value the employee. They're looking at statistics, or they're looking at growing the bottom line. And people sense that in under 14 seconds. That's how quick it is.
As Sunil, on your website, you use that word intuitive quite a bit. And you have, if I'm counting correctly, 6 areas that you provide some consulting services: intuitive leadership, hiring, marketing, sales, team building, and outsourcing, all really important areas. And of course, we're going to share all of that information with our listeners before we wrap up. But Sunil, you have developed that intuition, and now you're teaching others, including some very large name organizations and companies. But I want to ask you about a challenging time, something where you may have had that aha moment in your own experiences in building a business, where you've developed some of that intuitive, let's say that those street smarts, if you will. Do you mind sharing some of those experiences with our listeners as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the biggest case studies that I showcase is when I was hired to bring in as a consultant to help this one healthcare company, and they were struggling. They were about $400,000 and going down south. And it was a friend of mine who was one of the co-CEOs, and he said, "We need to fix this or we're done." And they had about 4 months runway of cash. I come in, I just tell them, listen, let me worry about how to grow this company, if at all. And the very first thing I do in a cash strapped situation is I raise all the wages, because people were severely underpaid, and that gained a little bit of trust. But in taking the business forward operationally and figuring out where the mistakes or where we can fix the leaks, I brought the employees together, listened to them, and got them involved in the process. Once I did that, then I was able to implement what they had suggested. Now I'm getting their trust and saying, yeah, wow, these two co-CEOs never cared for who we were. Here comes this consultant that's saying, wow, he really values our opinion. And then what that ended up helping is that once they were able to be trusted or trust me, they were able to help operationally, which meant that I can work on expansion. And we ended up taking that $400,000 struggling company to over $3.5 million a year in 2.5 years. And I gave them a $10 million gift by the time I left. And to give you a sense of, how we were doing in terms of knocking out the competition, the average we were in the healthcare space. The average healthcare company at that point was making revenues of about maybe $250,000 to $400,000 per location on average. We were making $1 million plus. And we were knocking out 5 or 6 of our competitors, phoning us to say, hey, listen, can you buy our assets? You guys are taking our clients. You're taking our employees. Like you're stripping us. And so that's what happens when you gain the trust of people inside the company. And then customers are coming because they're enjoying the experience. And that's exactly how you use intuition to gain the trust of both your employees and customers that knock out your competition. And again, struggling $400,000, $10 million in 3.5 years. That's the transformation you can have.
So my last question of all of our guests is always sort of that action item that I want people to take away. And certainly I'm hearing it loud and clear from you in terms of from your stories, from your own experiences, but also I know that you have a lot of resources on your website as well. I know you have your own podcast, your own, as you said, multiple books, lots of great content and information on intuition as it relates to hiring, as it relates to sales, marketing, team building, and so on. So best takeaway that I have, Sunil, is all of our listeners need to get on that website and subscribe in all of those areas. And Sunil, how can we get in touch and learn more?
Yeah, you can go to sunilgodse.com and everything's there on all the socials as well. So you can always reach out to me in any one of those. And my books are also available anywhere you can buy them. And I've got an audiobook for Gut. But I'm wherever you want to find me, and you shoot me a DM, and happy to have a chat about what I'm doing and how you can improve your intuitive capabilities.
Well, Sunil, I appreciate you teaching so much to all of our listeners. Fantastic resources and advice. I encourage all of our listeners to get in touch. We got to squeeze in a quick break here on the show all about small business jobs and entrepreneurship. When we return, more entrepreneurship, more resources for you in just a moment. Don't touch that dial.